was a meeting, and I took notes of the meeting.
There you go.
I was at the Seattle Chat Club meeting, and I'm the one that took the notes while Skip gave the interview.
Okay. Is any now? And this is just somebody who happened to know us and said, you know, I think these guys ought to be given a chance. And she got really fed up with the way the Seattle Chat Club was running things, and so she said, you know what, I'm going to help these guys out. So she sent me this list. And go back to the PC projector for me real quick. Okay. Appears that we're probably at the wrong resolution here. Let me fix that. They're nobody. Well, they used to be, they were formerly called the Seattle Art Bell Chat Club. And they were dismantled by Art Bell because Art didn't like the fact that they were not representing him very in the best light. So, I mean, I'm trying to be kind about this. Let me get this over here. Can you go back to the PC projector for me? There we go. Okay, now, what Lexi recorded was, there were approximately 10 to 15 people at the meeting. Now, I'm going to read this to you because I'm not sure everybody can even see that. Seattle resident Skip, not real name. Skip's about 6 feet tall. I mean, she just recorded the minutes as things happen. His real name was withheld for whatever reason. He was a room. Pardon me? Pardon? Oh, yeah. Well, I'm just going to read this because I don't. Even the people in the back, even if I made it larger, still wouldn't be able to see it. But this stuff is going to be up on my website, so you guys can take a look at it. And my website's aliendestiny.com. Aliendestiny.com. So anybody who wants to see this research can go up there and look. Robert lives in West Seattle, blah, 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 blah. This is just general information. Now, down to some of the more important information. This is things he recorded, that she recorded along the way. Pardon? I'm going to read it, okay? Okay, so there's a lot of personalization to this. You know, Skip felt uncomfortable at Jonathan's expensive clothes. There were a lot of personalizations, and I'm not going to read any of that stuff. But it does say here, Jonathan did not have a PhD according to him, but he did have a BS and a master's. This is according to him. He's wrong, but that's beside the point. When asked how he knew that he had a master's and a BS but not a PhD, Skip stated that he figured that out because he would need at least a master's to work where he did. And that he didn't think he had and here's his reason, okay? He didn't think he had a PhD because the story was so incredible, okay? Now, he did say that Jonathan worked at the university hospital full-time with autistic kids, which is not entirely true. He did not work with autistic kids per se. They were actually psychologically troubled kids, which, you know, he could have been confused by that. But he did corroborate that he worked at the university. Now, the Seattle Chat Club totally neglected to mention this. They just said, oh, well, that kind of corroborates the story, so we better not mention that. It says Jonathan's mom lives in West Seattle, and that, again, these are half-truths because I don't think this guy knew Jonathan very well. He probably hung around and heard some things and didn't understand what he was hearing and tried to just extrapolate information. And these guys were really badgering him to give them information. It says Jonathan went to UCLA and UW was part of it. Again, these are kind of important things that the Seattle Chat Club should have mentioned in this article, but they didn't. Jonathan had mentioned knowing the colleague that was shot at the UW, and we'll talk about that. That was a gentleman who had been helping us. And then interesting here it says, Skip says that Jonathan is not a psychiatrist, but possibly a psychologist. Well, he's always said he was a psychologist, so this just goes to show you this guy doesn't know him that well. But he did corroborate that he felt he was a psychologist. Down lower it says that Harold Chacon, who was one of the people who helped us with the specimen analysis, has more than one degree from Puerto Rico, that he thinks it was something like health sciences, but he didn't know. Harold speaks fluent English and is bilingual, which was consistent with the fact that Harold Chacon had attended the Pontifical Catholic University of Puerto Rico, because, I mean, he would have to speak Spanish, so that added up also. That was consistent. Says someone brought Harold Chacon a tissue sample, but Harold didn't have a lab in his house or a computer. I'm not sure what exactly that meant. I'm not sure how many people have a lab in their house, but they apparently thought that was important. Harold's degree comes from a Catholic school in Puerto Rico. And then Charlotte introduces Skip as a credible witness. So she goes through this whole thing, and she says, this guy's a credible witness, and we should believe everything that he says, but yet the only thing that they did was they found a few facts that really didn't mean anything to the case at all, and they used those in the Seattle Weekly article and forgot about everything else. This is the kind of stuff that we have to deal with every day. And people wonder why there's so much confusion about this case. It's because there's so much bad information going around there. And there are people with agendas and counter agendas, and all these things add up to confusion for everybody involved. And it wastes my time, because then I have to go through and counter all this bad information, which is, you know, a waste of my time and a waste of your time to have to sit through bad information. Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions with that? Okay, now I'm going to show you some other things here that I think really need to get out, that are really important. This is an internet. We went through this last time, but I'm going to go through it again because I'm not sure I made it really, really important. There's a third-party website called IAF.net. You can go to it yourself. It's on the web. It is like it's almost like a phone directory, only it's email addresses. It's a third-party collection source for email addresses. And it just so happened that Lexi, again, found this. She was doing some digging, trying to find some verification of Jonathan's background, and it just so happened that if you see here on the screen here, and I'm not sure if this is big enough for people in the back to see, but this says Jonathan Reed, jonathan@homer.u.washington.edu, 8/21/96. And this came off of a third-party website. It has nothing to do with us. It's just it's a separate entity. It's just a business that collects email addresses. Now, what's important about this is 8/21/96 is a system-generated date. You can't change that. When you enter this data the first time, that date is created for you by the program that manages this database. It's not something that you can change. It's not something you can add in. It's not something you can go back and later modify. It's simply generated by the system. So at least in 8/21/96, there was a Jonathan at homer.u.washington.edu. I mean, that's clear. Now, people ask me, well, how do you know that that was an employee and not just a student or whatever? Well, if you go down here a little bit further, I explain that. What you find out is that Homer is actually a faculty and staff server for the University of Washington. So whoever this Jonathan Reed is, was a faculty member or a staff member of the University of Washington in August of 1996. Now, I used that piece of information, and I said, okay, you know, let's just check this out one step further. I went to the campus, to the UW campus. I went to the payroll department for the psychology department for the University of Washington, and I met with the payroll director, and I showed him a picture of Jonathan. I showed him Jonathan's name, and I said, this person worked here, and I'm doing a background check. He worked here from 1983 to 1996. I just wondered if you can give me any information about him. Well, he did several searches, and he came back and said, we don't have a Jonathan Reed, a John Reed, a Jonathan Reed under any spelling in our database as having worked here. So, well, that's interesting because this email existed in 1996. There's no doubt about that, and it was a Jonathan Reed, regardless of some people have noted the spelling was different, but there are many spellings of Jonathan, or misspellings, I should say. Some people have spelled it with an O, some people with an A, and you know, I think even if you look in the brochures for the Congress, it's spelled with an O. It just gets confused on a regular basis. The important thing is that there was no Jonathan under any spelling, which can't be, because here it is on this third-party site that we have nothing to do with at all. Okay? Now, later on, I went back and we did an email update, and somebody had destroyed this information, but I just wanted to show you something because it's important to note here. Remember I told you the system date is generated by itself. Now, anybody wants to try this, they can go to the IAF.net site, and they can go to this registration form here. Try to change that system date, I dare you. You will not be able to. And you can see that when this was changed was April 2nd of 2001. So whoever changed this at that point in time changed it then, and there's no way you can change it. So to me, that's pretty significant evidence that that Jonathan had an email address at the University of Washington, and that somebody has covered it up. They didn't find it because this is a third-party site Now, I'm sure that whoever did this, this what we call the dark side, went through the University of Washington with a fine-tooth comb. But they couldn't have anticipated all the other places these things could show up. And they are starting to show up. And thank you, Lexi, for helping us.